So this is the view I'm going to be demonstrating drawing to you guys today here. So we're moving from drawing small objects in perspective to drawing objects that are, or rather an interior space as a way of practicing our perspective drawing. So now we're in a room that's a rectangle in shape. I'm standing on the floor, so we know that our vanishing point is going to be at my eye level, which for me is probably somewhere close to the bottom of that windowsill. And because we're looking at a corner of the room, we know that this is going to be a 2-point perspective, because notice how the walls taper as they come into the corner and they get wider as they go towards the edge of the view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with drawing my vanishing point about a third of the way up my horizon line about a third of the way up the page. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my vanishing points off into the corners. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line, and this is going to be that interior corner of the room. So this is the wall to my right, and then this will be the wall to my left. So I'm going to connect a construction line through there on both sides, and then I'm going to do the same thing from this construction point. Now the next thing I need to do, so I have that kitchenette area, and that projects out from there slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in another vertical line here. And notice how it's coming down further into space here. I'm going to give it some thickness. And since that's above my eye level, I can just barely see the underside of it here. So notice how with a lot of these details, at a certain point, I can kind of tell roughly where that line is going to be. And I can start to draw in those elements without having to rely on tracing every single thing back to the vanishing point. But at a certain point, I can start to draw in some more of the details. But I'm still, whenever I'm not quite sure where it is, I'm always going to come back to that vanishing point. So I've got one of the major elements here in the corner. Now I want to start to draw in this window up above here. So figuring out where these the horizon line and the vanishing points go is probably one of the things that students new to perspective drawing struggle with the most. And so how you determine that, well, one, figure out where your eye line is, but also just look at the space and how the angles of planes are moving, and that'll help you figure out where you think those vanishing points need to go. And as you get further into it, I think whether or not you're drawing things totally accurately or not, having an accurate perspective is going to help make what you're showing that much more believable, which is really important. So it's going to make some kind of logical, cognitive sense, even if it's not totally accurate. And as I'm doing this, I'm going back and forth constantly from looking at what I'm seeing in the room and what I'm doing on my page, and trying to make sense of both of those things and trying to reconcile them with each other. So now I'm drawing in that tabletop. And one of the challenges with drawing something like a tabletop, and I don't even know if I got it quite right here, but usually these are some of the most foreshortened elements, because even though it's below our horizon line and our eye level, it still tends to be very distorted in terms of its shape, because we know it's very, very flat, right? And even here I've probably made it a little bit too wide where we're seeing too much of that shape. So things like that tend to just be very distorted, right? The other thing that's going to throw this off a little bit is the roof in this space isn't quite flat. It's actually at a slight angle. So what I might do is I might exaggerate that just a little bit. The other thing that I tend to do sometimes is I'll hold out my pencil at an arm's length and try to use that to kind of measure the space to get a sense of proportion. So it looks like this thing is about a third of the width of the room. So I can then use my pencil or whatever else I have on hand to try to measure that out in the space. And at this point, I'm pretty much adding in elements that start to add some depth and detail to the space. And a lot of these things are all orthogonal in the room, which makes drawing them significantly easier. And then once you have it sketched out like this, then you can start to come back and make some line weight decisions to start to help some of this read better from a spatial perspective, and start to incorporate some sense of depth in the space. It also does not hurt to start to imagine people either interacting with or actually occupying the space. So these are things, even if they're, I think trying to draw a realistic person here is going to be a mistake, but to have somebody in here who is sketchy kind of like the quality of the rest of the drawing, then what it can start to do is add a sense of scale to that drawing and a sense of realism to it as well.